Alright, so we're back with another video. Today we're going to be giving y'all our top 10 teams before the World Cup is over. We got a lot of stuff going on in the transfer window for a lot of these teams. I think it was a good idea to start getting into the top 10 teams so we can kind of put our foot down before the transfer window get really going after the World Cup. Now, I'm going to try to get y'all another video out next week giving y'all the top 10 players at the World Cup, because I do think the top 10 players in the world and the top 10 players at the World Cup are two different lists. I do think I'm seeing a lot of things being said that are kind of crazy. I won't lie. I feel like some people kind of overrating these 5 games in comparison to what people have done over the last year or two in comparison, but I guess that's kind of how it is, recency bias. But today we're going to be doing the top 10 teams. As of right now, today, we're going to be putting in all the thought into the transfer that's going in, the transfer, I guess, rumors, and pretty much the managers that these teams have, either they already had or are new. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Y'all do want more of these? Y'all know what to do, man. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff out the way. Let's hop into it. Alright, man, hopping into it. Honorable mentions. Let's get straight to it. I do think people gonna be a little upset with my honorable mentions, but I gotta be real. This is my honest honorable mentions. Alright, so we have coming in, I guess, last place for this list, but we're gonna have 2 honorable mentions. It really could go either way. I don't really see the season going that well for the other team. I think, honestly, actually, I'm gonna do first Man United. I'm gonna do Man United first. I think Man United, I'm not a Newcastle fan, but if I had to say my Prem team probably is Newcastle. I'm a Barca fan, I'm gonna be real. But Man United, I'm gonna be real, I've been paying attention to a little bit what they've been doing. So I was actually intrigued with what they was gonna do, because you got the stuff with Rashford, you got the stuff with Michael Carrick. He came in, had a good spell second part of the season. Now, how y'all gonna build on that? Y'all haven't really tried to really give him anything to give him momentum to go into next year. You had to chew him anything. That wasn't a real thing. That's kind of Man U fans. It's a lot of stuff that goes on with the Prem, with the fans and all type of stuff. Like, I be seeing Prem fans acting like a certain team spend a lot of money, but they don't. Like, I'm gonna keep being all these big 6 teams, they spend money. I'm gonna be real. Some teams just cannot get the same type of players, and some people are scared to buy other players because of whatever. But United, I feel like they was wanted Anderson, they didn't get him. They wanted Mateus Fernandes, they didn't get him. I think it was kind of a mixture of Elliot Anderson didn't really want them compared to City, and Mateus may have actually wanted them, but they didn't want to pay those fees. So I'm gonna be real. Right now it's looking kind of interesting. They end up signing Santos. They got Ederson a while ago. I think they're trying to back out of that deal, though. I don't think that's whatever's going on is actually a real thing. But we'll see. Manchester United, I think they have a couple issues, but I think their attack for the most part in the Prem, because the Prem already has a pretty bad attack problem in terms of wing play. I think they're okay in terms of the league, but the midfield, the defense, it's a lot of holes in a lot of places. I think Michael Carrick just made them play simple football where they play compact and hit teams on the counter. I think they can still do that this year and have a pretty solid season, but having to do this with Champions League, and they don't really have that much depth already, I think it could be interesting. But I'm gonna go honorable mention. The next team I have an honorable mention. This is the team I was saying was gonna be last, but I'm like, at minimum though, I can see this team winning a couple trophies. I'm gonna go Inter. Now, Inter had a very underwhelming season coming off the season they had the year prior. When you think about it, they got destroyed in the final against PSG, but they did have a great tie against Barcelona. And then before that, people forget they beat Barcelona. They beat Bayern. They had a very good UCL run the year before that. And they actually had a really good season. It just wasn't a successful season for their standards because they won nothing. At the end of the day, they lost in multiple finals. And they ended up losing in like the last day or last 2 games of the season in the Serie A. So it was just unfortunate for them. Last year, they won a double. And they were not nearly as good. It's just what it was. They were not nearly as good as they were the year prior, but they won the double because Serie A is just a weird league right now, man. And I do think this could be a season where they could try to turn around, but I do think without the manager they had a couple years ago, it is a problem. I don't think this manager is as good. I don't know what changes they're going to try to make. Like, they tried to get Palestra. They actually have a really, really deep striker room for whatever reason. Like they got two good starters and they got two good backups, like legitimate backups. So Inter is actually like they got riches in that area, but we'll see when it comes to Inter. I don't think that their style of play, their formation is really gonna work that well in Europe, especially with this manager. But for now, I say honorable mention, and I'll give them at least this because I know for a fact they're gonna win their league. But Serie A right now is kind of becoming a very, very watered down league because there's just not a lot of money in that league, and that's kind of the case with a lot of these leagues. But Serie A is kind of the one that you kind of seeing it being hurt by it the most right now, out of the top 5 leagues at least. Next, we got Atletico Madrid coming in at number 10. I think Atletico honestly have had a very underrated transfer window, but I honestly said the same thing last year, and it was kind of around the same level team if they've been the past couple years. Now, the Julian Alvarez thing, I'm actually anticipating that to see what happens there. As a Barca fan, I'm gonna be real. That's looking like a scam. I don't really doubt too many attackers that Barca gonna get because you play with Hansi Flick, you're gonna look good. That's why I'm like, when Man United fans try to gas Rashford, you're not watching these games because there's no way you're gassing him if you're watching these games. Yes, he has his moments in certain games, but there's nothing consistent about Rashford. You play under Hansi Flick, you're gonna get GA. It's just what it is, and you kind of seeing that at the World Cup. A lot of these players that play under Hansi Flick, they're not in that same platform. Outside of really Lamine as an attacker, Lamine just hasn't been good for his standards. On the other hand, a lot of other guys, I do think a guy like Fermin could have actually flourished at the World Cup. You kind of seeing a lot of guys in that same profile, they would have been good. Long story short though, Atletico last year, they beat up on Barca. They made it to a semifinal. They made it to the Copa del Rey final. But at the end, they didn't really win anything. I think that was actually a good season for them. And I do think if they keep doing the right transfers, like it seems like they've been doing in this offseason, it could be interesting. Now, I'm honestly interested to see what they do with the money that they end up getting for Julian Alvarez. Because I do think the Julian Alvarez thing, I think is cooked, regardless if he leaves for Barca or not. I think at this point, they kind of want to just scam Barca. Because not only can you just scam a rival, but you can also, I don't know. I really don't know. But I do think he's going to work with Barca. It just comes down to how much he's going to go for, I think, is the thing. But he has the ability. They've been having some interesting purchases. I'm going to put them 10. They still have a lot more to do. Honestly, I thought at one point Simeone was going to be done after this year, but apparently he's not. So I guess I don't know what's going on with that. But I'm going to say 10. Then at 9, this is the team that right now, in my opinion, is the team that's going to make the biggest jump. I think from a manager standpoint, you've seen how they ended the year. And I think getting that midfield situated is one of the biggest problems they had on the team. Spurs. Now, I'm going to keep it being. Spurs is going to be tough to rank because this was a terrible team last year. Now, there's a couple different context things. I think Thomas Frank was bad. Igor Tudor was 10 times worse. Igor Tudor went over there and played a formation that does not really work in the Prem unless you're like a really consistent coach like a Glasner. I'm going to keep it being. Tudor was bad. Like it was a bad situation that he made 10 times worse. What De Zerbi did with that situation was amazing. And then you got to think about the injuries. The injuries that this team had was ridiculous. Now you look at James Madison coming back, and then you have a Mateus Fernandez, and then you have a Tonali. That midfield compared to what they had pretty much all year, night and day. Think about the start of the year when they actually looked good. Mohamed Kudus was like at the scene of the crime for how good they were in attack, or really the whole focal point of their attack. He got hurt as well. You think about Kulusevski. I'm going to be real. I think Spurs is a team that they have a lot of injuries. Think about even their back line. Even their back line was dealing with injuries like crazy at the end of the year. I think, even look at I do think, one thing I will say, World Cup, it's a lot of players that are going to come out of this World Cup very overrated because it's a completely different game. International football is completely different than club football. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. So, I do think Pedro Porro, he's going to actually fit pretty well with De Zerbi. Think about even the center back signings. When you think about Senesi, you think about Van Heck. Those guys are going to fit with De Zerbi. The only one I'm not really messing with too much is Robertson. I'm not messing with that one too much, especially when you think about all that. But I do think everything else, like if they get Leao, I think that could be a difference maker in the, like, for a winger. If you think about wingers in the Prem, it's not a lot of wingers in the Prem that have his technical ability. But I will say Leao is kind of just a Serie A Rashford, I won't lie. But the level of the Prem wingers is not high. So it's like, you kind of take what you can get in the Prem, in my opinion. Wingers, for wingers at least. I do think they have a striker conundrum, in my opinion. Like, quiet is kept. But I do think De Zerbi, he already kind of fixed that situation as good as he could. And I think they're trying to give De Zerbi the guys that he wants, so that there's not a commotion, there's not a problem. And I think if they keep doing this, and it look like that's what they're gonna keep doing, they get a guy like Krupi, like they've already talking about. I think Spurs could be even higher by the time the season get going. But for now, I had them at 9. Then coming in at number 8, I have Chelsea. Now, I'm gonna be real. Chelsea, on the other hand, they do not have the craziest signings like Spurs. The thing that I said with Chelsea, in I guess comparison, is that Chelsea manager, I like De Zerbi, but he's not Xabi Alonso. Xabi Alonso, I have a lot of faith in, especially coming from a Barca fan. When he was with Real Madrid, that was the scariest Madrid look. That was the most consistent Madrid was. Madrid, when they fell apart, people don't even realize this because people don't watch La Liga. It was injuries. And Mbappe's form fell off a cliff after he got injured. Once he got injured, you could kind of see him kind of saying, and that's one thing I will say. A lot of people say he don't play like this for Madrid. I'm going to keep it being. He just cares about France 10 times more. I'm going to be real, especially at the World Cup. Because quiet is kept. Mbappe is really only like this level for France at the World Cup. Maybe in the qualifiers, I don't know. But at the Euros, he was nowhere near this. Nowhere. So, I'm going to just say, bro, I think Xabi Alonso, especially with the profiles that this team has, I do think it's interesting what happens with Enzo Fernandez. I like the Palestra pickup, depending on the formation that they can play. He was a big deal in the Serie A last year. Inter wanted him. Barcelona wanted him. I don't think Barcelona was gonna get him if that was the price, but Barcelona did want him. There was a lot of teams that wanted him. He was a very good guy. I didn't even realize he was that tall, but I think that's a good pickup. I think Granit Xhaka would be a pretty good pickup for like a squad player for them, but I don't think you want to be depending on that. I think what you kind of want to get back to Chelsea is maximizing your best players. Caicedo had a down year in my opinion last year. We don't need to speak too much on Cole Palmer. I think Estevao is a tad bit overrated right now, but I do think he does have potential for what he can become. So I think Chelsea has some guys. I think Pedro, everybody was down him coming into the year last year. I think Pedro kind of has proven himself as what he can be. I think they have guys. They just have to build on it. I think the main thing they need to figure out is the center backs for sure. But outside of that, you could talk about goalkeeper. I think their fullbacks were fine, and then they got rid of Cucurella. So now you're making problems that you kind of have to fix. I will say that. But I'm interested to see what Chelsea looking like. I think Xabi Alonso, I trust him. I think he's going to be arguably the best manager in the league. Honestly, especially with Pep gone. It's going to be him or Arteta, I would say right now. But I'm going to say them at 8. Then at 7, I think this is a team that had amazing talent. They had injuries, yes. They had all these different things. I think the manager was holding the team back. You think about the year that they won the league, they were playing as close to pretty much Klopp tactics as possible. Last year, they kind of just went a lot more into slot. So, I think that's kind of was the problem. I think that was the issue. Now, I think Wirtz with Areola, I don't know how that fits. I think Izak, he should fit somewhat. But all the other guys around him, when you think about Kirkaz, I don't think the fullback that they ended up getting is going to work. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that's really the ideal. But in terms of how Liverpool wants to play, I think Areola, also one of the more underrated coaches in the world, not just in the Prem. I think in the Prem, they don't really underrate him. I think outside the Prem probably. But I think the manager and team fit is there. It's just Liverpool had a down year in my opinion. I expect Liverpool to be a lot better this year. I think they have a lot more talent than what they showcased last year. And I think Areola is just going to be the better manager, the better tactics for the personnel that they're going to have. That's just me personally. Now, I do think they have their problem when you think about guys like Gakpo. I'm honestly interested to see what they're going to do with their wingers. At one point, they were talking about getting Diamande. I don't think Diamande is going there. So we'll see. I actually like Rio. He's like one of the wingers in the Prem I actually do like. They have a crazy striker situation, regardless of what you think. Midfield, I think they actually have somewhat of a midfield conundrum. I could see a guy like Adam Wharton end up going to a couple of these teams, like a United, a Chelsea, a Liverpool. I could see him going to any of those teams, honestly. Like, yeah, I wouldn't be too surprised. But I think Liverpool right now, I like their talent that they already have, and I like the manager chance that they had. And I think, honestly, Chelsea had their little conundrum with Enzo Maresca, where it came out now that he was going to be going regardless. So the second part of the season was the second part of the season. I think getting in Xabi Alonso, that's a big deal. But I don't think they really had much to really talk about at the manager position after Enzo. Liverpool, they kind of actually believed in Slot. Is the thing with me. I don't think a lot of Chelsea fans really even believed in anything they had going on from a manager standpoint after Enzo left. Personally, I think Liverpool fans actually had a lot of belief in Slot. So I think getting Areola in, I don't even know if he has a lot of belief. But I think that's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work instantly. But if you give him time, I think that's going to work really well. Then coming in at number 6, Manchester City. And this is Enzo Maresca's new team. Now, the thing I would say, this is not a hot take, I don't believe. I think when it comes to Haaland, Pep is my GOAT. He's my GOAT. I think he's the greatest manager of all time. But I don't think Pep was getting the most out of Haaland. I think you've seen the stretch when he was getting the most out of Haaland. City was looking like the best team in the league at that point. And then they kind of slowed that counter-attacking style down around the late December mark. And they got a lot less consistent. I think if they would have just said they would have kicked their pride away, then played like that for the rest of the year, I think they could have just won the league. But them not doing, and I think there was a couple of things that was going on with that. They had injuries at the time, and they was trying to preserve their stamina, just trying to keep everybody healthy. But it wasn't just for Haaland. It was also to help Donnarumma, who cannot build up from the back. So I think when you think about your spine, you kind of have to, especially if those are arguably your two best players, you kind of have to do that. Now, one thing, reason I'm going to say City here, I like Enzo in the way he's going to play. I don't know how well Rodgers going to fit in this style. I think Rodgers going to be kind of in a similar vein as to what Caicedo was for Chelsea with Enzo, where he's going to be kind of like stopping the counters and stuff like that. But I do think he's going to be a more on-the-ball presence than Caicedo, obviously. So I'm actually interested to see that. But if you've been watching Spain, now this is the thing I say. I don't think Pedri on the ball has been Pedri at any type of note. But if you watch Spain defensively, their ability to like just kill counters, when you think about Cucurella and Pedri, those two with Rodri has been ridiculous. That trio has been ridiculous at killing counters before it gets to the center backs. And then Barsi as that last line before it gets to the goalkeeper has been amazing himself. But I do think having a guy like Elliot Anderson next to Rodri compared to Bernardo Silva is going to be a huge upgrade. Now, it's going to be some City fans that's like, how? Bernardo Silva is a midfielder that goes everywhere around the pitch. He vacates the midfield. He will pop up at the left wing. He'll pop up at striker. He'll pop up at right wing. He'll pop up at fullback. But when it comes to the counter, he's out of position. Elliot Anderson, he will go and press somebody and get out of position. But 9 times out of 10, he'll still be within the midfield vicinity. So I do think having him next to Rodri and letting Rodri be on the ball more is going to be huge for Rodri compared to what he's been dealing with the last 2 years. So I do think Rodri injury had something to do with him. And I do think the Prem style of play is significantly different than international football. But I do think having that stable midfielder next to him is a big deal for them. And I do think that's going to be very interesting. I think City getting Rodri back to his level. I think City is not going to play as much the Pep way, more so to how the players, to fit the players. And if you watch Enzo likes to get on the counter. He likes to play that fast flow football. When you watch him play against the big teams, that's what gave the big teams a lot of problems. Now think about Haaland with that. When you look at Norway was a problem for almost every team they played against because of Haaland. Or Yeah, because of Haaland. He was Mr. Inevitable until the game against England, where it kind of wasn't his fault, in my opinion, but that's a whole different discussion. And then Donnarumma not having a... Just think about how Enzo even used Robert Sanchez. He knew Robert Sanchez wasn't that great with his feet. He didn't force him to do that. Same thing with Donnarumma. I don't think Enzo is... Again, I don't think he's as good as Pep. But Pep has the credit in his bank where he don't have to play to people's needs. He can make players fit him, and you have to adjust to him. That's just kind of the thing. But Pep will also adjust his system, but he will only adjust it so far, in my opinion. But I think they're at 6, and I think they could be a team that go even higher, because I'm not going to lie, City is a team that will spin, and they will spin even more. And then we're getting into the top 5. Now, top 5 is where it does get very interesting, because at number 5, at Real Madrid. Now, I'm going to be real. Madrid's window has not been crazy to me. I think the one signing that was interesting to me as a Barca fan was Cucurella, because that's going to be on Lamine's side. That makes a lot of sense. And if you think about what they've done in the last 2 years, they got Alvaro Carreras, and then they got Cucurella this year. I don't know what's going to happen with Carreras, but I do think they have a clear play style in mind. They're going to play counter-attack football. They're going to play compact and hit you on the counter. So, yeah, they're going to let Vini kind of play free. I think they're going to let Mbappe kind of play free. Cucurella already said it. Vini, you don't even have to track back. That's my job. So, I'm actually interested to see how they're going to play. I think they're going to be very, very tough to play in CL in the big games. When they play against these low block teams is where it's going to that's where they've really struggled in the league. In my opinion, like even last year in the UCL knockouts, they could have beat Bayern, but Courtois didn't play. Now, Courtois did get injured in that last World Cup game for Belgium, so we'll see how big a deal that is. But they did make some other signings, like the Dumfries signing. I know he had a solid World Cup, but I don't think people realize now, unless they're changing their system to allow right wing backs. But pretty much not Netherlands, they pretty much play with 3 center backs to allow Dumfries to bomb forward. Now, I don't think that's gonna work for Madrid in some games. Now, some games it will, because they don't really have a great right winger. Now, there's a couple things that they could do. Like, again, I don't think they're going to sign. I was confused why they wasn't signing Rodri. Now, I kind of know they're just waiting out his contract. Rodri wants to go play for Madrid. He's already stated it before. They're just going to wait this last year out, and then Rodri's probably going to go there. Now, another thing I didn't mention with City, they're doing some crazy business with Buadi. If they do end up doing the signing thing and let him just stay there, and then when Rodri leaves, they got him coming in, I'm going to keep it being, that's insane business. I won't cap. And I'm not even the craziest Muadi fan, but I think the way that they're maneuvering that is kind of wild. Madrid, on the other hand, they kind of do need that in their midfield. And this is kind of why I say when it comes to Jude, the conversation is crazy. Because a lot of things that you kind of want out of your midfield, Jude doesn't really bring. But what he does bring, he does at a level that I would argue no other midfielder does. But then you have a guy like Mikel Merino, who is just a tough person to even discuss. Which I would also say about Jude, to be honest. They're both just very tough players to discuss. Because when you're watching Madrid, especially this past year, Jude has not been good. For his standards, again, if we comparing him to like some bull, then yeah, he's been good. He's Jude Bellingham. But for his standards, especially when you think about his debut season, he's not been good. Now, I do think it comes down to him playing out of position. People say he's an 8. He's not an 8. People say he definitely can't play in a double pivot. He needs to be playing further forward. He needs to be playing more in a shadow striker, maybe even a false 9 role. But he needs to be out and around the box. That's where he needs to be. That's not a knock. That's not a diss. That's just what it is. So, and if you watch Mbappe with France, like he drops deep. So that's why I'm a little confused how that doesn't really work. I know he can drop that deep to the left, but Mbappe has even been dropping deep towards the center. So I don't know. And that's been working very well with Olise, but they just don't have. Madrid just don't have a player like Olise, and the closest they have is Arda Güler, who again had a better season than Jude last year. So I'm gonna be real. This situation with Madrid, where you got the Vini, Mbappe, Jude combination don't fit. But we know Vini and Jude can fit. We've seen that before. We just don't know how to make that other person fit in there with those two, and that other person is the best player of those three. So they have a dilemma. But if they can get a guy like Olise, then Fairs, I guess. Like, I don't know. Fairs, like, I guess. Like, that's a completely different, that's probably best team in the world conversations off of that signing alone. Because that would nerf one of the best teams in the world, and that would improve them, obviously. But I'm really trying to think, like, if they get Olise this year and then get Rodri next year for a free, like, what are we talking about, bro? This is getting ridiculous. But I'm going to have to say for now, until I see something, because, like, the Konate not moving me. Dumfries not moving me. Bernardo Silva, I even discussed that with City. That's not moving me. None of those are doing anything for me from a Madrid standpoint. Like, are you going to play Bernardo Silva off the right wing? He was terrible with Portugal even doing that. If you played him in the midfield, I already discussed why that's a huge problem. Because you already don't have the controller of a Rodri. Tchouaméni killing counters is probably better and more athletic than Rodri at this point. But I just don't. It's a lot of questions I got with Madrid that they haven't still answered enough for me. Now, could Konate be better than he was last year? Yes. But all the guys that they signed, even Cucurella had a down season compared to the year they had prior. So, I say for now, 5. Then at 4, I got Barca. I think Barca, when it comes, I said this already earlier, the sign is that they sign an attack. I don't think it's a problem. I do think the Ferran Torres leaving, I know a lot of people talk about him missing, but if you watch Ferran Torres with Lamine, you kind of can tell the profile that works well with Lamine when you think about the Rafinhas, when you think about the Firmino. So if they do get a Julian Alvarez, the Ferran Torres leaving is not the craziest thing, but I'm not going to lie. Ferran actually, when he's in form, he's actually really, really good. He's out of form, it's bad. I could see him going to a place like PSG where he don't have nowhere near the pressure on him, and he has a ridiculous season. Now, the thing is, he's been having 20-plus GA every year for the last 2 years with Flick. So, and I said this, Flick is going to get GA out of any attacker. It's just what it is. You play enough games, you're going to get GA. It's simple as that. So, even a guy like Ferran, who's going to probably have the most big chances missed every single year for Barca, he's going to get 20-plus GA. And it's going to be damn near 20 goals along with it. So, I don't know. It's a lot of things underrated with him. Like the pressing, the tech. I don't know. It's a very interesting situation, but they obviously have a profile of what they're trying to put around Lamine, but I also do think they're trying to do that to help the midfield. Because the issue was last year when Rafinha would go out, there's less pressing. And that puts more pressure on the midfield. That puts more pressure on the defense. And the defense was getting crazy injured. The midfield was getting crazy injured because they was getting overworked. So what they're kind of doing is just getting guys and profiles that they kind of share the burden for the most part. And they make it easier on the other guys behind them. So we'll see how that works. I think personally, Barca needs to get more defensive pickups from the fullback position. But you can see, like, Kubarsi's second half of the season was ridiculously good. He had that one mistake with the red card that I still don't agree with. But it is what it is. He got it. And I think people are kind of seeing that he is very good. It's just he plays in probably the by far toughest defense to play in world football. It's just what it is with Barca. Barca plays the toughest style of play defensively in the world. Now, it's entertaining, though. You can't deny it. The Barca has some of the most entertaining games. So it is what it is. But I do think Barca and Madrid, they still haven't really made that move that really is changing much for them. But I still have them 4 and 5 for now. And then the top 3 is the top 3. It comes down to whatever order you want to do. I'm going to go with this order for now. But this could change. Arsenal at 3. Now, Arsenal, they have not made no differences. Now, the big deal with Arsenal for me, it's coming out that a lot of their players that's at the World Cup is going to be most likely out until October. So, that's a big dent for me compared to these 2 other teams. Now, alongside that, who are we signing Arsenal to, like, go along and help that attack? Because you got the defense right. I do think the midfield is not the greatest. Like, shout out to Declan Rice, but, like, people killing Pedri for having Declan Rice style performances. And I do think because Declan Rice is so much bigger than Pedri, they give him a lot of more credit for the defensive contribution. But Pedri, I don't know what he got to do to get some type of credit for some of the stuff that he does, even when he has bad games. But these bad games is pretty much just that. I'm not going to lie. But I'll be real, man. I'm looking at Saka. I'm looking at Declan Rice. I'm looking at Saliba. I talked about him. at this World Cup, man, you can see that they definitely being overplayed or worn down. Saliba coming into it injured. Declan Rice, he just looks worn out. Saka can't even play a full 90. Gabriel had a rough start, but he started getting going. He did have that goal he gave up on Haaland, but that's Haaland, brother. Like, come on. So, I'm interested to see what happens with Arsenal. I think they have... now, one thing I will say about their defense, I did think they had a lot of great defenders, but I'm going to have to start giving Arteta some credit for that defense because a lot of these guys look a lot better with Arteta. Now, like I said, could it be more the wear and tear on them from the past season? That could be the case. But even then, I think, yeah. Especially when you think about Brazil playing high line and Gabriel getting caught out a couple times. That's never really a problem with Arsenal because they don't play a high line for the most part. So, I do think Arsenal is very interesting, but I have them at 3. I think they're the best defensive team going into next year for sure. I'm interested to see what they do in the midfield. Like, if they get, like, again, they get a Morgan Rogers, a Bruno G, which is what it's looking like, especially Bruno G. That's a big deal for them. But I will say, I don't think their midfield was that big of a problem early in the year, especially when Zubimendi. Before Zubimendi wore him down, he was fine. It's when he wore down is when it became a problem. And then Arteta took too long to make that change with Miles Lewis-Skelly. Then when Miles Lewis-Skelly came in, they were fine. They were fine. It was just simple as that. They get Bruno G in there, then you still have Zubimendi, you still have Rice, you still have Miles Lewis-Skelly. Then you have an interesting situation. Now in that 10 situation with Odegaard, Eze, that's another conundrum. Striker, another conundrum. Left wing, another conundrum. Right wing is getting some stability. Can Saka stay healthy though? That's coming a problem. I think Arsenal has some questions for sure, but I think their defensive depth, even at the goalkeeper position at this point, is very good. Then coming in at number 2 is Bayern. Bayern has actually had one of the most underrated windows when you think about left back with Davies. He's been out the lineup for the past couple years. People still kind of overrate him because of what he did in the past, but he has not been able to stay healthy, and when he has played, he's just not been that same Davies. With that being said, getting Nathaniel Brown, who was one of the better left backs at the World Cup, I think is a great signing. He was actually really good last year as well. I think that's a great signing to get somebody that's in your league. That's what Bayern used to be able to do. People was having all these conversations about had they lost their pool, they was able to get him. And then to be able to get Saibari, that was an underrated pickup at the time. And that same day that they signed him, he had an amazing game against Brazil. Then he was again good after that. He had another game after that. And then you kind of seen how bad Morocco looked in the game against France in attack when he didn't play. So I think Saibari is actually a very interesting pickup. Very, very interesting pickup. I think Bayern actually making some really good moves. And I think Bayern is at 2. Simple as that. I think Olise, Kane. I'm going to be real. Shout out to the World Cup because I know the World Cup comes down to whatever. I think Lamine, I'm going to keep it being. Going into the World Cup, I thought he was the best player in the world. I don't know how you can not say it's Messi. I'm going to be real at this point. I can't really argue against it. If you want to say Mbappe, especially because of how ridiculous he is in the World Cup, I can't really argue against it. But Kane for the Ballon d'Or, I'm going to be real, man. Like, the way y'all love GA, I don't really get what the hell does he have to do? I don't get what he has to do. Like, he's in the semifinal. He's not on the team that was expected to win. France was the team that was expected to win. When you think about I'm gonna be real. Another thing when it comes to Jude, a big reason why it worked is because Kane's false nine and drawing the defenders and getting them out of position a lot of times creates those openings for Jude to make those runs. Like, so Kane may not be getting the goal or the assist for a lot of these plays, but that action of them being able to fit that well and seamlessly is a big deal of why it works for Jude. And it doesn't work at Madrid. So, I don't know, man. That's what I say. I don't know. I feel like Kane's season was so ridiculous. He's literally like second all time for club and country total goals in a season. Like, not for like second person place. Like, he's over any non-91 goal scoring Messi season. Like, I don't know what we're doing here. I think we kind of overthinking this Ballon d'Or shit at this point. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I'll be real. Like, when Haaland had a trouble with 54 goals, I was like, okay. Messi got his first World Cup. I get the narrative. This one, especially with Haaland not making the World Cup that year, I could understand. Kane being top 3 in the Golden Boot. You know what I'm saying? Having big games like the game he had against Congo. The game he had against Mexico. You know? And then, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's still performing in the World Cup. He got him to a semi-final. I don't know, bro. I don't know. I feel like we kind of overthinking this Kane shit. I think he should be the Ballon d'Or frontrunner right now. But if we're just saying the Ballon d'Or is all on the World Cup, then we know who the winner is. It's going to come down to whoever wins out of Mbappe and Messi. Whoever gets the furthest, I would say. I think that's what it is. Whichever one of those two gets the furthest, I think it's just going to win the Ballon d'Or at this point. And I think that this has kind of become a problem. Because it's kind of like that. When it's not an international thing, it's coming down to the CL. You know what I'm saying? So I think you're getting consistency on that. But I do think that's just making some of these things, some parts of the season just don't matter. So that could be a problem. But I do think Bayern, the best player for Bayern, by the way, has not been Kane, has not been Olise. And I think both of those guys have been good in the World Cup. But the best player for them in the World Cup has actually been Upamecano. Upamecano has been the best center back in the World Cup. He's been ridiculous. You got to give him a lot of credit. Playing next to Saliba, he's kind of covered for a lot of Saliba issues so far. And people don't even talk about it because Upamecano has played to that level. So, I think he deserves a lot of credit. I would say Bayern too. Then number 1, I don't think this is much up for debate. PSG. Ramos. I see a lot of people saying Ramos for 75 million is crazy. I don't know what market y'all looking at. I'll be real. I don't know what market y'all looking at. Ramos is actually a player that's played for PSG in the CL. Big games come in and get goals. In the league, big games come in and get goals. He's a guy that get goals. You go and play in Serie A in a league that's not. You go look at the Golden Boot in the Serie A. It's not high, you know. Amorim needs a striker. I think I'm gonna be honest. I think Amorim is actually gonna be pretty solid. I think Amorim. The one thing I say about United this year and last year, or really the past couple years, the one time United got the transfer into white was when Amorim was in charge as the manager. I'm gonna be honest. I think Amorim, especially when you think about what he had with Sporting, Amorim may just have good talent at ID, bro. Y'all don't want to give him that credit, okay? But maybe he just has good talent at ID. I don't think getting Ramos is that tough, is that hard of a decision, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see what he does with AC Milan. I think that's an interesting conversation as well. But I think PSG, they get Ferran Torres. It depends on how much they get him for. That could be a big move for them. Yan Diomande, that could be it. I'm interested to see what Yan Diomande do with them. I think he's gonna be a roto, like he's gonna be kind of like the Barcola replacement. I don't even know, bro. Based off the price that they gave Barcola, I don't see him leaving. 150, I don't see that happening. Like the prices are like I'm a person that says the inflation, the market is the market. We're not finna keep arguing people being overpriced or what, but I don't see a team having 150 million to spend on Barcola. I just don't see that as a thing. That could be his value, but I don't see nobody paying that. Like the only team I could see doing that is maybe Arsenal. What I think Arsenal would pay 150 for him if they can just get Morgan Rogers for cheaper, who is already proven. I don't see them doing that personally. That's just me. Who else? Maybe Liverpool. If they don't get Yan Diomande, maybe they're the team that get Barcola. I could low-key see Liverpool doing that. I ain't gonna lie. 150 is a bit much. And I also looked up what Elliot Anderson's money was in USD. That shit like 180 or 156. It was 156 or 186. I don't remember. It was one of those. That's two completely different numbers. But I'm low-key seeing it in my head. I can't fully remember. Well, long story short though, I will say though, Luis Enrique he may got that touch, bro. He may got that touch, bro. Because a lot of these players do not look the same. Like Dembele, I know if you look at the stats, you know, and that's why I'm saying this game is becoming a very stat-based game, GA, which is kind of what really makes me upset about the NFL and NBA when it comes to discussion around those sports. It's just stats. People don't watch the games. Dembele has not been good outside of 2 games in this World Cup. Like you got the game against the backups against Norway. And you got the last recent game where he had a moment, I would say, but he wasn't really that good against them either, against Morocco. So I think Luis Enrique is getting the most out of these guys. Now, I will say Dembele is a player that's being played out of position. He's not a right winger. I'm sorry to tell you. His best position is that false nine striker. And I think that he could do that with France. And Mbappe plays off the left, you know? And you go with a Olise off the right. And you go with like a Cherokee off the middle. I think that could be their best little setup, if I'm honest. But I think Mbappe just has to play striker. So, and the people that say he's not a striker, I'm gonna give you a beat. I think y'all gotta stop saying that. The brother, what he did for Madrid this past year to start the year, when he was playing striker, he was the best striker in the world, debatably. You looking at the World Cup, you could make the argument he's been the best striker in the World Cup, debatably. So I don't really know if we can keep pushing that one. So I do think Dembele has been playing out of position. Vitinha and Neves literally playing together though for Portugal. And outside of a 3-man midfield, playing with Bruno instead of a 3-man, they playing with like a 10. They looked not nearly as good. John Neves is always a minimum like 7 or 8 out of 10. He was not that with Portugal. Vitinha was, I don't think Vitinha played that much different. I'm gonna be honest. I think the thing with Vitinha was he didn't have the space. He didn't have the setup. He just didn't have the, he had a bigger responsibility for Portugal, and he just played it safe, in my opinion, kind of. So I'm interested to see. Nuno was the only person I would say, like, you could see when, and I'm seeing people say Nuno didn't have a good World Cup. I'm gonna be real, man. Nuno, you kind of could see it when he came off the pitch for Spain. I'm not even talking about defensively, because I don't think Lamine did anything different when he came off the pitch, because they just kept doing the same thing they were doing already, if not even worse, when Nuno came off, when it came to defensively. But attacking, he was their best attacking threat. And that's, like, every single time I watch Nuno, you could even argue that in some games when he plays for PSG. That is insane when you think about the guys that they have on PSG. So, Hakimi didn't have a good World Cup either. So I'm really thinking, like, who had a good World Cup for PSG for real? Probably Dembele is the best. I'm trying to think, who else do they have that was at the World Cup? Doué hasn't had the greatest World Cup. I'm honestly surprised Doué hasn't had a better World Cup, because when I'm thinking about France, like, some of these stats that they getting, it's like, this is such a stacked lineup that you gotta get assists, you gotta get goals. Like, it's just inevitable for your team. Like, there's so much talent around you. Like, I just don't see how it won't work. Doué is not really succeeding the way I expected. Even though I'm not the biggest Doué guy, I thought he would have a better World Cup, to be honest. So, I don't know. When it comes to PSG, then, man, oh, no, Pacho didn't have a great World Cup either. I'm gonna be honest, man. PSG players outside of Luis Enrique's system, they don't look that same level. But when they come together to play together within those tactics, they look ridiculous. And we see that they can play the health game, the rest game that no other top 5 league really could. But maybe Inter, but Inter didn't really take advantage of it. So, you know, but PSG, I think right now, as the best team. They won the UCL literally back-to-back. Could they go for a 3-peat and join Real Madrid? We'll see. But for now, I got them at number 1. And I don't think that's too much of a hot take. Now, like I said, next week I'm going to give y'all the top 10 World Cup players. But y'all just got to make sure that y'all drop the support by liking the videos and subscribing if you're new. But yeah, without further ado, man, that's the top 10 teams. I'm actually interested to see how this transfer window closes out. I'm going to give y'all some more videos. I'm going to probably give y'all Premier League predictions. I'm going to probably give y'all some top 5 league predictions in that video as well. Some awards, some things and all that type of stuff. When we get around to CL, probably give y'all some stuff like that. But yeah, we're going to keep doing these World Cup videos for now. Like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff out the way. Your boy Fitz. I'm out of here.
Tell them to bring me my money. Yeah!